were trying to remove this thing. Now we got it out. We can show you guys how to.
Now those back to those plugs.
Why didn't we do this before?
Probably not a bad idea. We could have.
Corey, look up here.
Same thing.
I'm gonna
we can
push.
this, probably.
I'm gonna push this, and there he goes. You just push and. If you push the red stuff and.
Get the back side of that.
That's coming. One at a time.
Now those will just slide back in. They just plug right
Yeah.
in. But you have to make sure they're planted all the way down to that ring.
This, you can grab around the hole on both sides like that, and just give it a little bit of pressure, and it'll come out. So let me see that. Let me see this. So if you take a tool like this and push evenly on both sides, and then the piece will release from it. Now, I would inspect this thoroughly. Inspect the crack here. Make sure you don't have a crack, because these things do break. I mean, if you have it out, I would suggest just buy a new one, just so it's fresh. It's hard plastic. It will crack at some point. There's a green seal that sits in here that goes to the supercharger. If you look down here, here it is. Buy a new one of these, put it in. It's $20 seal, but it's worth it. They go bad. It's dry. It's hard as a rock.
All right, you guys are on.
All right, guys. So now we got to the root cause of the problem. We've taken the supercharger out of the Mini. It's a John Cooper Works Mini. So the vanes in the supercharger actually look really good. There's no play or nothing, but this is what you would call the PTO gears. As you can see inside, it's completely chewed. So we're gonna send the supercharger with this out and get it serviced.
What we are concerned about here is this wasn't working, which powers the
Water
pump. So we're going to have to do a compression check on the car to make sure that we don't have a blown head gasket.
Yeah.
The car runs quiet, there's no problem there, but
yeah.
we have to make sure, since we never drove the car.
Yeah. The last Mini we did, this was super tight. Felt really good.
There's only an ounce and a half of oil in this whole system, so if it gets sucked into the supercharger, which is what happens, it goes dry, and that's when the
Yeah. So I think for what we've done today, it's a lot of work. Obviously we can't put it back together today, show you guys how it all goes back together, and believe me, it sucks. But there's a couple of more hoses on here that need to come off. Like, we'll order these hoses, we'll order this hose, because what happens is, where's that other hose we had? I want to show, like, the biggest mistake that I see being done is the other hose that sit on the water pump, the clamp was riding right on the bottom of this, and there's a gash right here. If you service the car, make sure when you put the hose clamp, that the hose clamp is not the two hoses that run on top of each other. The hose clamp neck isn't rubbing against any of the hoses, because what happens over time, it's going to puncture a hole, and then you're going to have a major problem. You have to take this whole thing back apart, and someone's done it right here. When I pull this off next time, I'll show you guys. And even here, like, if this thing was driven anymore, it would have just, the guy would have lost all his coolant. It would have been a nightmare. So going back in, we'll order new hoses, and when we put it back together, I'll point that out so you guys don't make that mistake at home. We're gonna get online, order some of the parts from there's a Mini website that's pretty cheap. It's a dealership on the web. Some of the stuff we'll source out locally. We're gonna order everything we need before we go back together. We'll send a supercharger back out. What's the company, Rich, we send their supercharger out to? We don't have the information on hand, but I'll get you guys information on where to send the supercharger, because these guys, know exactly what they're doing. Don't lose any of the bolts. I would say put it in a bag. You can categorize the bolts if you want. When we go back together, we'll show you guys, you know, step by step how to go back together and what bolts went where. So in case you don't know what bolt goes where, look through the video. Once all the parts show up, I'll show you guys a parts list of everything we ordered, and hopefully I'll have all the part numbers on there. So if you guys are doing this job, even before tearing into it, even if your supercharger is not bad, we'll show you guys how to service the oil in the supercharger. And then you can do this in one day if you had all the seals and stuff to go back together. So we'll order everything that we need, that we think we need right now. And then hopefully we don't run into a snag of missing one part, so we can put it back together the next time we see you guys. I say subscribe to the channel. This is our third Mini we've conquered. BMW makes some shitty products. That's all I have to say. I'll see you guys next week.
Difficult.